session will be about, I'm happy to invite Aniket and Jean-Baptiste on the stage, but before that, maybe Melania, you have a specific relationship to this project.
Yes, exactly. So a few words about this success story. It's really close to my heart, as I was personally involved from my previous consultancy role, where expertise on demand was needed, where the partner plus the customer really pushed SAP. So let's do more, let's do better. They pushed us and they wanted somehow to have a cockpit situation. So here I'm speaking with all the FX souls, FX hedging souls in this room, like me included. They wanted to have like a cockpit situation where they trigger, they receive. So not anymore like it was also in my previous corporate treasury life, that we were receiving a file, we were sending a file, we were downloading, uploading. That's not integration nowadays. That's not real time, that's something 2000 late. And now what's happening, they wanted, and they make it like beautifully in a way that we communicate. We communicate, we trigger, we are there in our cockpit, we trigger our FX hedging, we get back. So it's a beautiful, beautiful success story where they really pushed our limits, also our credit limits integration. So really pushed us to have one of the best-in-class success stories. So I'm so happy to have now on stage Jean-Baptiste from Japan International Tobacco, and together with our partner PwC, Aniket. So please join me on stage to let us know more. Thank you.
Okay, my mic is not working, so I guess I will start here. Thank you. I'm Jean-Baptiste, this day Treasury Technology Director at JTI. On the stage with me is Aniket Kulkarni from PwC, who helped us to implement a end-to-end cash flow hedge accounting solution under IFRS 9 in SAP. I also need the beep, you have it, right, thank you. So Aniket will start with a few words on the Treasury transformation, because at the same time, PwC also supported the Japan Tobacco Treasury transformation. And then I will drive you through the project itself and the solution that we implemented for cash flow hedge accounting in Japan Tobacco. So Aniket, the floor is yours.
So warm welcome from my side as well. And first of all, I must say it feels great to be in person, attending the conference and not in front of the camera. So yeah, thanks to SAP and TA Cook for organizing this in person. So as JB mentioned, I mean, I'll quickly start with an introduction on Treasury transformation. And I must say, Francois, you covered all the topics quite well. And incidentally, me and Francois were on a panel last week discussing on Treasury transformation. And the key theme coming out of that discussion was the strategic role of Treasury, not just in Treasury's own transformation, but the wider finance transformation. And this topic post-pandemic is really interesting, and that's basically what JB will also present in his session. But starting with, what are the key drivers of Treasury transformation? I mean, if you look at the 5 big pillars that are emerging from our Treasury survey, and I'm sure, Francois, from the ESCT survey as well, you'll have more of these drivers and quite a lot of synergies as well. But starting with the 5 key topics, I mean, the business partnering role of Treasury is emerging as one of the key themes. It's not just a driver for transformation, but also brings Treasury in the agenda of CFOs and the CEOs. And that's actually quite interesting. And the other one related to digital ESG, as Christian, you mentioned as well, is one of the key topics for SAP. Cash has been the topic forever, and I guess it will stay as a topic, listening to JP Morgan as well. And the last one, but not the least one, financial risk. And that is actually the theme for today. And as JB mentioned, I mean, the key parts for transformation is starting with vision and strategy, leading up to the organization or the design of the treasury function, and embedding that function into the wider finance function, and then, of course, the program and change management. So that's basically what we see as a theme. Now, specific for today's topic, the role of Treasury as a business partner is quite important, given the fact that when we look at the markets, the volatility in commodity prices, freight, and FX is actually impacting the profitability of an organization, more so because it's affecting the product pricing. And this is where we see Treasury playing a big part in business partnering with the product controllers, with basically the commercial teams, in basically fine-tuning how the product pricing should work, and linking it to basically all the nice things that Treasury does in the market in order to optimize volatility. The other big theme from this topic is basically the role of exposure management in getting the right amount of exposures in order to hedge the exposures in the market, and the strategic role of using compliance in order to release the P&L to the books. So that is the theme for IFRS 9, and how you can use compliance in a more strategic way in order to basically reduce the volatility in your books. So that's something which Jean-Baptiste will cover. And we really had a pleasure to work with JTI and Jean-Baptiste and his team. And where, JB, I must say you were actually a co-creator, in Francois' words, together with SAP to basically design this product. So over to you, JB, to take us through this.
Thank you. Thank you, Aniket. So before we deep dive, let me first introduce you the company. So Japan Tobacco, we are a tobacco company. Although we do have some processed food businesses and pharmaceutical businesses in Japan, 90% of our revenues are coming from tobacco. We generate $20 billion of revenues a year. We operate in 130 countries, and we have roughly 55,000 employees across the world. Treasury is located in Geneva, Switzerland. We have 3 financial hubs or trading entities that are located in Switzerland, in the Netherlands, and in Japan. We are a verticalized function newly verticalized function, and that matters, with 115 professionals across 6 regions. On the right, you can see a few financial metrics and ratios. Our FX risks, so I did mention we are operating in 130 countries, so it's therefore logical that we are very exposed to the FX risks. Our transactional FX exposures over 12 months are about $10 billion equivalent. So these are transactional risks. So every transaction in non-functional currencies, it's not about translation risk. We do trade about $100 billion equivalent of FX derivatives per year, which roughly represent 12,000 trades a year, including the liquidity management. So it's not all for hedging. And we do obviously operate in many currencies. A very high-level slide to explain how we manage our future and secure our future cash flows. Every company does differently, but this is our way. So we want to apply cash flow hedge accounting on the derivatives, hedging our operational flows. And then we want to secure the cash repatriation flows, so mostly intercompany dividends, using another hedge accounting solution, so another hedge accounting treatment, which is the hedge of net investment or net investment hedge. So going to the project itself, a bit of background is that JT was doing some cash flow hedge accounting on a very restricted number of trades. It was very manual before the project, so it was not bringing many benefits. So cash flow hedge accounting, as a reminder, does 2 things mainly. So it allows you to reclassify your FX from below the line into your operational margin and free cash flow, and therefore provide a better visibility to these. And then it also allows you to defer your FX in OCI until the realization of the underlying. And then basically it brings much less month-over-month P&L volatility. So then for JT, it means we could go on with higher hedge ratios because we had less volatilities in our EPS. So basically, we were looking for a solution that can manage a large volume of trades and be compliant with IFRS 9. And of all the project challenges, being compliant with IFRS 9 is one of the most important one. Yes, they have been very inventive on this one. So you need to, so here I'm going to list a few of the project challenges when you go this road. So you need to have a proper IFRS documentation. You need to be able to compute the various components of the derivatives and post them properly. You need to account properly for the basis adjustments, so then your FX can go to inventories or be capitalized. You also need to properly reclassify your FX into the right P&L lines, depending what you're hedging. You need to understand how you want to designate spot, forward. It also depends on how you are hedging. What is your FX hedging strategy? So how long are you hedging? What are the instruments that you're using? What is the volume of your trades? The underlying risk, as I mentioned, is very important because it all drives your reclassification then in the P&L. Do you have a layered ratio approach? So all this needs to be considered. Your program objectives as well can be very different. You can do it full-fledged, as we did, or you can also limit it on the geographical scope, or if you want to secure a specific P&L line, that you need to define it upfront. The forecast accuracy becomes even more important because basically, IFRS 9 requires that the forecast is highly probable, and that is on the risk category level. So you need to really drill down into your forecast and look at it by risk categories instead of an aggregated view. Also, you also need to consider your FX hedging operating model. So do you have multiple trading entities as we do? Do you do back-to-backs? Do you centralize your hedging? Do you do nettings? And you need to consider all that. Yes, the stakeholders as well. So you need to constantly align with a very large number of stakeholders, front office, middle, back office, FP&A, the local finance teams, your IT, your consultants, SAP for us, the auditors, even with your accountants, and then senior management, obviously, which is very important, and that drives also the in-house education. You need to constantly educate your stakeholders on the project and the expected outcomes. So these are the main challenges. And you can only achieve and have a successful implementation if you have a strong system, strong processes, and strong controls. So coming back to JT, Japan Tobacco, so we have 3 trading entities. Our main complexity comes from the fact that we do not always back-to-back our trades. And we do designate, under hedge accounting, trades centrally. So meaning we can designate a euro zloty trade in a dollar entity. A few years ago, we were looking at a solution to implement hedge of net investment. And we were also implementing S/4HANA at the same time. So we did look at the SAP's solution, the hedging cockpit in hedge management. And unfortunately, SAP at that time was not able to cope with that model. So we had to go with a third-party solution. For the RFP for cash flow hedge accounting, so we looked again at the SAP solution, and we were very glad that we saw that they enhanced their solution and can accommodate our requirement, being able to designate hedges centrally. Therefore, we chose SAP. And it's very logical because if you look at our system landscape, so we are full-fledged SAP company. We have a single S/4HANA instance. And prior to the project, we were already using Exposure Management 2.0, on top of which we had some custom transactions, generating an Excel file that we were uploading to the trading platforms, and then had some custom interfaces for the trades to be booked back in SAP. TRM was only posting NPVs or cash flows, but all the hedge accounting for hedge of net investment at that time is done in this third-party solution and was posting directly to FI. So the solution itself, what we implemented, so a workflow, it starts with the entities submitting the forecast. We do that into BW. It's automatically consolidated in BW. The forecast shows the company, the exposure currency, obviously, the flow type, so if it's external or intercompany, if it's an inflow, an outflow, and the risk category. What are we hedging? The amounts, of course, and the month. We are hedging on monthly buckets. We have a custom interface that uploads this Excel file, BW Excel file, into Exposure Management 2.0. And it does basically upload and replicate the exposures in SAP in Exposure 2.0. And we keep tracking of all these elements, especially the risk category, which matters a lot. Then we do an exposure snapshot. So basically, we transfer the exposures from exposure management into hedge management. And this is where everything takes place. This is where we go into SAP's hedging cockpit. So this is the main solution of SAP. And here, it's displaying the main information. So here we see the exposure on the trading entity level. But we also see the exposure currency and the company of which we hedge on behalf of. And then on the rows, we can see all the different important elements, which are the exposure, what are your outstanding hedges in place, what are your hedge ratios. So here you can set a target hedge ratio in the system. And then it also displays what is the actual hedge ratios, and SAP will automatically propose the amount to hedge to come back to your target hedge ratio. Then we have, at the bottom, we have two lines that shows what is freestanding hedges that are not designated in hedge accounting and what is designated in hedge accounting. So you can choose also just to hedge economically without hedge accounting or apply hedge accounting on your trade. On this screen, you can do hedge requests. So here you can do simple hedge requests that will trade the amount proposed by SAP on standard, but you can change the amounts, obviously. You can do it on an automated manner. It does not have to be on a single position. It can be a bulk automated request creation. You can also do FX swap requests, which is a unique and very specific functionality in SAP. So basically, you can swap your positions with hedge accounting. It will transfer the OCI, what has been accumulated in OCI, from one hedge relationship to another, which is very interesting. And obviously, you can also do a de-designation request to partially or fully de-designate a trade that is designated under hedge accounting, and it will become freestanding. This is the hedge request screen. And here we can choose the instrument. So we implemented FX forwards, and we are finalizing the FX options and zero-cost risk reversals, all this in the same screen. So once this is done, we have, so the trade request is made, and there is a workflow. Once it's approved, it is transferred to the trading platform integration. So this is the place where our trader goes, basically. He sees all the trades that you have sent for hedging in this SAP Cloud Solution, Trading Platform Integration. Here, the trader can choose to send the trades to either 360T or Refinitiv. He can trade FX forward, FX options. He can do phone trades. He can do swaps. He can split a trade for counterparty risk reason if you want to, if the ticket is too big. Or he can do also block trades to net the spots and have a cost efficiency. And this is obviously fully integrated with S/4HANA. So it can also use new functionalities that are very interesting. So you can also check directly in the system what are the counterparty limits, utilization. So here we see the limits that we set and the current utilization. That's a static report, but there is also a new functionality that we're testing currently that is also the pre-trade check. So you can select a number of trades, and then TPI will tell him what are the possible counterparties with enough utilization headroom to be used. That's a very interesting one. So once trades are done, it's automatically pushed down to SAP and booked as in TRM. And here the hedge designation is done automatically and the documentation is done automatically. And then TRM will do the mark-to-market entries, the cash flow entries, and the hedge accounting entries into SAP FI. The solution is very interesting because it can handle many different hedging scenarios. So it can swap positions, as I mentioned, and it can also manage the delayed release. If you have days of inventory outstanding, it's very useful when you're hedging your inventories automatically, and you can even predefine a split for that. So you can say, in this hedging area, 50% of the FX will be released in 2 months, and 50% will be released in 3 months. We have, it can also handle various designation profiles. So you want to designate spot, you want to designate forwards, and SAP is able to compute all the various components of the derivatives and post them as you want. So we are obviously speaking about the spot component, the forward component, but as well as the cross-currency basis spread, the CVA, DVA component on each of these components, and obviously the time value, intrinsic value split for options. So we ended up with a fully integrated end-to-end process in SAP that can manage the high volume of trades that we have with or without hedge accounting. And it does work for FX forward, it will work for FX options, and risk reversals, zero cost risk reversals. So it has been a long-lasting project, planned and built over 2 years. And there was a few, here I believe I listed the success factors. First one is the actual treasury transformation that facilitated the project implementation. Sorry. The verticalization of the function basically helped to get a better forecast. We created a middle office function to handle the hedge accounting entries. We created the technology position, me. Simplification is very important. Make it simple, go straight to the point. So we decided not to back-to-back any of the trades anymore. So we do everything centrally, actually, from the forecasted cash flow perspective. We focused on material items. We did deliver the FX forward first. Another great element was SAP's new ways of working and the support, constant support of SAP in the delivery of this solution. And they did provide several enhancements to help us achieving what we wanted. And we believe it made our project better and your solution better. So thank you for that, SAP team. Also, you need to have the right team. I did mention all the stakeholders. I mean, you need the full range of competencies here, even accountants. And you need the right consulting firm. Thank you, PwC, for that. And a competent IT team. And then you need the right support, especially internally. So you need to, it's a long-lasting project, so you need to constantly educate your senior management. And to finish, before the cookies, I think, what's next is that, simply is that we are so happy with hedge management is that we are going to extend the solution to our hedge of net investment program and basically decommission our third-party solution that we currently use. And we are going to also to use it for balance sheet hedging. It's not probably the purpose of it, but we have our balance sheet exposures in exposure management, so it does make sense. And then we want to have all the trades going into TPI after this journey. So it's, we are still doing the implementation. But that's it. So I hope it brought some nice insights to it. So if happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Yes, actually we do have
okay.
some questions. The first one is JB Aniket. Could you please provide some insights on any SAP out-of-the-box analytics you utilize or you plan to utilize in the near future?
Okay. Maybe I'll start, JB, and oh, it's working now. Perfect. So maybe I'll start, and JB, you can also give your perspective. But I think we are in constant discussion with Arif and Christian on the analytics. The interesting one from the exposure perspective is the FX dashboard. I think that is something which is very interesting. And as JB mentioned, I mean, once you have a single instance with all the data in the system, these applications are simply fantastic. I think there are quite a lot on the cash management side as well, which look very, very interesting. And I think what we like about SAP is that you can also bring your own design and still use the data, which is then part of these applications. So yeah, that's what me and the team we are looking forward to use on our projects.
Well, all the data is there, so we actually built some few custom transactions to collect all the information and build very nice reports in a nice way. But all the data is in exposure management or hedge management, which simplifies a lot any reporting you might want to do.
And then there is one question about how do you designate the external net hedges between companies with opposite exposures?
It's very simple for Japan Tobacco, so we don't do netting. If we have one hedge in one direction and one hedge in other direction, we'll trade both. We don't have many netting opportunities, so that helps. Now, what I would suggest is that you still do this way, and then in TPI or your trading platforms, you can actually block trade, meaning that you will net the spots together. So that's maybe a nice way to have specific hedges for every flows that you can properly book, but do not pay the price of doing two hedges into two different directions. That would be my advice.
That's why you are not doing that for the balance sheet hedge. Balance sheet is more opposite sometimes.
Yes, it's still applicable for balance sheet. It's still applicable for balance sheet. So we do as well for balance sheet hedge individually each exposures. It can go in many different directions, but again, in our case, we are pretty lucky. I mean, it does not happen so much netting opportunities, but I would still recommend to use the block trade functionality and have dedicated external hedges for every flows. That could be an approach.
All right, then I think that's all from the question session, but you also find them at the booth and you can ask them more for sure. So thank you so much for having us today with the topic, and we will go for a small coffee break now.
Thank you.
Thank you.